Hello and welcome back. Now, before we look at the sources of equality law, I would like us to look at the protected characteristics under the Equality Act. So this is the groups of people that are protected under the law. I would want us to look at this first, so that when we look at other legislation, and if we come across any differences in the categories of people that are protected, we'll be able to identify this. All right, so I'm going to go on to share my screen now, so that you can see my slides. Okay, yeah, so we will be looking at protected characteristics. All right. So under the Equality Act, we have 9 protected characteristics, and these I have listed there. So we have age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion and belief, sex, and sexual orientation. Now, people with these characteristics will be protected from discrimination under the Equality Act. Now, we're going to look at these, in more detail. All right, so we have age, which can be found under Section 5 of the Equality Act. Okay, it is unlawful to discriminate against employees, job seekers, and trainees because of their age. People of different ages and age groups are protected. Okay, so we can say somebody who is 50, say 50 is protected, or somebody who is 20 is protected, or their age group. So if the age group is between 40 and 50, that's a category as well. They will be protected under the law. It is against the law to discriminate against a person because they are younger or older than another person, when they are buying goods or services, or in education or in employment. So if you remember, I told you, Equality Act applies in, these 3 areas: employment, education, and goods and services. All right, but we usually focus on employment, and that's what we'll be doing, in this course. So when we are talking about equality and discrimination, most of them will be referred in employment. However, discrimination based on age can be allowed, okay, if it can be objectively and reasonably justified by showing that it pursues a legitimate aim of social policy, and that the discrimination of that person is a proportionate means of achieving such an aim. Right, so I gave you an example of this in our employment law lecture. When I told you that one of the reasons we have a lower national minimum wage for younger people is because the government wanted to give employers incentives to employ young people. So otherwise, if the minimum wage was for the same for everyone, then employers would employ other people with more experience at the same rate. All right, so you can see that the lower minimum wage, it does discriminate against young people, but it can be justified because the government is trying to achieve a legitimate social policy objective. However, we have this is even already included, in the Equality Act. All right, so in Schedule 9, paragraph 11 of the Act provides that it is not age discrimination to continue to have different rates of for national minimum wage. And then we would see that in paragraph 13, allows a higher redundancy payments for older workers. Note that workers used to be forced to retire at the age of 65, but this was repealed in October 2011. So to force somebody to retire because they have reached a certain age will now be an unlawful age discrimination, unless it can be justified. Okay, so in age discrimination, discrimination on the basis of age can be justified. Okay, Then the next one, disability. Okay, and this can be found in section 6 of the Equality Act. This section of the Act protects people with disability from discrimination. An issue that is usually contested in disability discrimination is whether the person meets the definition of having a disability. Okay, so therefore, a person has to prove that they have a disability before they can be protected under this law. Okay, a person has a disability if, so that's the definition of a disability under section 6 of the Act. It says that a person has a disability if he has a physical or mental impairment which has a substantial and long-term adverse effect on his ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities. Okay, so it can either be a physical impairment, all right, so for example, an amputee, who's had his legs cut off or arms cut off or something, and he cannot walk, okay? So that's a physical impairment, okay? So the person with a physical impairment will be protected, or it can be a mental impairment, okay? And when we talk of a mental impairment, it covers mental illness, okay, as well as, learning disabilities. Okay, so people who are maybe autistic, will be protected. Some illnesses may be classed as a disability or not. It depends on the effect that it has on the person's day-to-day activity. Okay, so for example, depression. All right, so depression can be mild. All right, so it may not have so much effect on the person's day-to-day activity. The person can carry on their life as normal, even though they have that depression. Whereas there are some people that when they are depressed, they're unable to get out of bed. Okay, so it depends on how it affects the person, their day-to-day activities. All right, so then something like that, will be classed as a disability. All right, so if it does not affect the person's day-to-day activity, then it will not be a disability. But if it does, it will be classed as a disability. Then there are some other things that will not count. Okay, but its effect on the person's body may count. So for instance, an addiction, someone that has an addiction, maybe to alcohol or drugs, that addiction will not count as a disability. But the symptoms of alcoholism, such as liver disease, may count as a disability. Right, so some conditions may not have any effect on the person. There are some conditions that will have, they will not have any effect on the person, but it will be considered as a disability. So for instance, severe disfigurement, okay? When somebody is disfigured, it may not have any effect on them, all right? But those automatically are counted as a disability. Okay, then the next one is a gender reassignment, which can be found under section 7 of the Act. Okay, this section, it protects a person if they are proposing to undergo or is undergoing or in the process or part of a process, for the purpose of changing their sex. Okay, so the person is trying to change their sex, maybe from man to woman or from woman to man. Okay, so they will be protected under this Act. In a previous legislation, they were required, to have some form of medical intervention before they can be protected. But this is not needed anymore. Okay, so as long as they're doing this, they will be protected. Then it does not cover transvestites or cross-dressing. Okay, so that transvestites or people that cross-dress will not come under this section. Okay, then section 16 provides that if a person who is undergoing a treatment because of a reassignment is treated less favorably than someone who is absent from work, due to sickness or injury, that will constitute a discrimination. Okay, so that's how you a person who is undergoing a reassignment will check whether they have been treated less favorably. So what somebody that is sick or injured, how does the employer treat them? Do they give them time off to to recover? Whereas when they are undergoing the gender reassignment, the employer will refuse to allow them time off. Okay, so if they're able to show this, then it will be less favorable treatment because they are undergoing gender reassignment. Then we have the Gender Recognition Act of 2004, which allows transsexuals who have lived in their acquired gender for at least 2 years to apply for a gender recognition certificate, and this would enable them receive a new birth certificate in their new identity, and then they'll be treated as if they were born in that sex. Okay, so that's it for gender reassignment. Then the next one is a marriage and a civil partnership, which can be found in section 8 of the Act. Okay, right. There were times when married women were expected, and in some cases they were actually required to resign once they got married. Okay, so this was the reason why we have a law against discrimination, law against discrimination against married women. Okay, so discrimination against married women was made unlawful, as a result of this. This section protects those who are married, okay, or in a civil partnership. It does not protect single people, divorced people, or widowed people. So the protection was extended to civil partners in 2004 under the Civil Partnership Act. All right, and the next one is pregnancy and maternity, and that can be found under Section 4 of the Act. Okay, so it is unlawful to treat a pregnant woman unfavorably or victimize her because she's pregnant. All right, so the Act gives a protection to pregnant women in a protected period. Okay, so they call it a protected period, and this protected period starts from the beginning of their pregnancy, to the end of their maternity leave. An action, after this period might still amount to unfavorable treatments because of pregnancy and maternity, if that action is because of a decision, that was made when the woman was in that protected period. Okay, so maybe when she was pregnant, the employer, let's say for instance, she asked to maybe start her maternity at a certain point, and the employer decided then not to allow her. Okay, and then after the period, whatever it is, whatever decision that the employer made while she was in that protected period, if that decision takes effect after the period, it could be classed as an action within that protected period, and it would be a discrimination against her because of the pregnancy. Okay, then the next one is race, okay, which can be found in Section 9 of the Act. All right, so the law makes it unlawful to discriminate against a person because of their race. All right, so this section defines race to include color, nationality, and ethnic or national origins. All right, so the use of that word include, allows for race to be defined more widely than color, nationality, and ethnic origin, as is listed in the Act. All right, so I would presume that you remember the rules of interpretation you studied last year. All right, so using that word, include, or I think it was including, including that the act says. So using that word may also include things such as a place of birth and place of origin and so on. All right, then we have that case, BBC and South Star. Okay, an English journalist on BBC Scotland claimed that that he was replaced by a Scotswoman because he was English, and then the court held that this was capable of constituting a discrimination on grounds of national origin, and that nationality need not be defined in terms of citizenship. All right, so English, Scots, and Welsh can be defined as having the same nationality as citizens of the UK. All right, but they have different, national origins. Okay, so that color, nationality, ethnic, and national origins can be, defined widely. We'd obviously look at these in detail when we study each aspect of the, well, not each, we're studying a few of them, aspects of the protected characteristics. But race is one of the ones we're studying, so we'll look at these in more detail. All right, then the next one is religion or belief. Okay, and this is can be found in section 10 of the Act. All right, so people are protected from discrimination because of their religion or their religious or philosophical beliefs, okay, or even for lack of religion or belief. All right, so that somebody belongs to a religion, or somebody does not believe, does not believe in God or whatever others are believing in, they would be, protected. And then one religion or branch of religion does not trump another. Okay, so therefore a Christian or a Muslim or Hindu or any other religion will be equally protected. Then in that case, in Granger PLC against Nicholson, it says that for a religious belief or philosophical belief to be protected, that they have to meet these 5 conditions, listed. Right. So the first one is that that the belief must be genuinely held. Okay. Again, we're going to have a lecture on religion and belief. So all this would explain in detail. All right. But just for now, these are the 5 conditions before the law will protect someone's philosophical or religious belief. Okay. It has to be genuinely held. It must be a belief and not an opinion or viewpoint. It must relate to a weighty and substantial aspect of human life and behavior. It must attain a level of cogency, seriousness, cohesion, and importance. And it must be worthy of respect in a democratic society. And it must not conflict with the fundamental rights of others. Okay, again, like I said, all these we look at, we'll have cases, under this that, we'll be, studying. Okay, and then the next one is sex. Okay, right, so it is unlawful to discriminate against a person because they are either a man or a woman. Right, so this section came about as a result of, the history of discrimination against women. In the past, women were restricted from entering into certain professions, okay? But, with we have the first Sex Discrimination Act, was the Sex Disqualification Removal Act of 1919. Okay, so this made it unlawful, to stop women from entering in those into those certain professions. Okay, however, the act did not prohibit discrimination in training or in selection for those professions. So the professions that they made it unlawful to stop women from entering, it did not make it unlawful in the selection process. All right. So it was not until 1975, with the Sex Discrimination Act, that this was now made unlawful. Again, this is another one that we're going to go, really in depth with, to understand this. If you remember one of the lectures, I talked about theories. Okay, so we need to understand why women were discriminated against and how they were discriminated against, and then how the law has come about to change things or try to change things depending on how you look at it. Then we have sexual orientation, which can be found in section 12 of the Act. All right, so when we talk of sexual orientation, we mean orientation towards persons of the same sex, or persons of the opposite sex, or persons of either sex. All right, so when we say persons of opposite sex, that would be heterosexual. Persons, they have sexual orientation towards persons of opposite sex, heterosexual. They have a sexual orientation towards persons of the same sex, that would be homosexual, and then of either sex will be bisexual. All right, so the law prohibits the discrimination against homosexuals, heterosexuals, and bisexual people. It is also unlawful to discriminate against a person because of the sexual orientation of another. Okay, so if somebody discriminates against you because maybe you're affiliated with somebody, that has sexual orientation towards maybe same sex or whatever, it's also unlawful, or because the discriminator thinks that the victim is of a particular sexual orientation when they are not. Okay, so if the person that is discriminating thinks that you are maybe homosexual, but you're not, but they discriminate against you because of that, it is unlawful. Okay, and you can also bring a claim. Or even where the discriminator knows that they are not of that sexual orientation, but goes on to harass them for being so. Okay, so maybe they thought they know you're not gay, right? But they kind of make fun of you, harass you, calling you names as if you were. Okay, that also will be unlawful. All right, so yeah, so I think that brings us to the end of protected characteristics. So these are the 9 groups of people that the law will protect against discrimination. If a person is treated less favorably because of any of these characteristics, then they are entitled to bring a claim in court for discrimination. All right, so just stop this. Then next week, then we'll then go on to look at the sources of equality law, where we get our laws from, and or where they are derived from. Yeah, so I'll see you next week. Bye.